My story, like many love stories, began with hope and the promise of something great, and now it seems to me tangled like an old knot. My name is Julie, and I'll be 33 in a few months. I have been married to Adam for 5 years now, and our union was once filled with laughter and lightness, which we both enjoyed. We spent every spare minute together, as if trying to dissolve into each other. It seemed that everything in our relationship was cloudless, that only happiness awaited us, but over time, habit and routine began to pull our lives into a tight ball of monotony. It wasn't so noticeable at first. We both worked, we had a home, cozy and reliable, where every corner was familiar to us, every object in its place. This comfort, such a familiar and seemingly safe predictability of life, became not just a part of us, it enveloped us like a warm blanket. It is said that couples, once they get used to each other, can feel too comfortable, and this has its own danger. At first, I didn't think much of it. I thought it was just part of a long relationship. But then life took a different turn. About a year ago, Adam's work began to take up almost all of his time. Frequent business trips began, something completely new for him and for us, because before his working day always ended late in the evening, but he returned home. Now I faced empty evenings alone, peering at the clock, waiting for his return. I tried to convince myself that these were just temporary changes, but when Adam was cold and distracted even at home, I began to feel something slipping away from our marriage. Conversations with him became more and more distant, as if he was only physically nearby, and his thoughts were somewhere far away. He was looking at me, but as if through me. And that worried me. I often tried to calm my anxiety by telling myself that it was just stress at work. But the shadow of doubt grew inside me like a cold stone in my chest, and I felt that something invisible was tearing between us. And then one day something very unusual happened. I returned home after a long day at work, expecting to see an empty house, because Adam usually came home well after midnight. However, this time, when I entered, he was already there, sitting in the living room in thoughtful silence, as if something invisible weighed on him. It was 8 o'clock in the evening, and I, taken by surprise by his presence, could not hide my surprise. "You're early today," I said, with a certain sense of foreboding. He looked at me, and there was a mixture of fatigue and sadness on his face. There was no light, familiar warmth in his eyes that I knew. Adam, avoiding my gaze, explained that his father had been in a serious accident. A car hit him as he was crossing the road. What happened left a deep mark on all of us. Adam's father was a restless man. He loved nature, fishing, and it was difficult for him to sit still. Now, after this accident, he found himself confined to a wheelchair. Both legs and one arm no longer obeyed him. I couldn't imagine what a blow it was for him, for the whole family. The real surprise came when I realized that everything that was happening was not so much related to taking care of my father-in-law, but rather to the fact that Adam and his mother were pursuing their own interests. While maintaining a relationship with another woman, Adam seemed to be planning to organize his life anew, leaving me in the role of a nurse for his father. This discovery burned from the inside, like a betrayal that had grown in the very depths of the soul, leaving a taste of bitterness and pain. Didn't they think about the needs of his father, a man who was always generous and kind to me? Adam's father was a man who, despite all adversity, was able to give warmth and support, doing it sincerely and from the bottom of his heart. His misfortune was a heavy blow to me, but now that I realized Adam's true motives, I felt a mixture of anger and despair boil up in me. I couldn't just leave the old man, leaving him to his fate, but at that moment it suddenly became clear to me that those whom I considered close turned out to be completely strangers to me. Then something absolutely stunning happened. One day, when I brought Adam's father his morning tea and pulled an armchair over to him so that he could get comfortable, he suddenly got to his feet. I froze in disbelief. My whole reality seemed to collapse in an instant. Wasn't he paralyzed? Could it be that all this year, in which I believed in his helplessness and believed that he needed my constant care, he could walk? My head was spinning, and I couldn't say a word, shocked by this sudden truth, so coldly hidden from me. What else was hidden behind this story? What other secrets could come to the surface, destroying everything I once believed in? What kind of blow do I have to go through if the man I loved as my own father was able to deceive me like that? Over time, a new silence was established in our house, but of a completely different kind. It was not a peaceful, comfortable silence, but a tense one, as if something menacing was hovering in the air, ready to descend on us at any moment. Every evening, when Adam returned home late, I felt a vague anxiety begin to form in my heart. His returns were getting later, his face was getting colder, and our conversations were getting shorter. But one day, at dinner, Adam suddenly broke the silence, and words came out of his mouth that changed a lot. He said that he decided to take over the management of his father's company and become its president. This statement sounded like a thunderclap out of a clear sky, and I could have sworn that a dull echo of his words rolled through the room. The very idea that Adam, who always aspired to be independent, away from the family business, decided to take such a step shocked everyone. Tears welled up in the eyes of my father-in-law, who for a long time worried about the fate of the company created by his own efforts. He looked at Adam for a long time. Gratitude and a certain relief flickered in his eyes, as if he had finally managed to throw off an unbearable burden. He barely managed to pronounce the words, "Thank you, son." I was worried about the future of the company, but now my heart is at peace. Adam seemed to have found a new meaning in these words. His face took on a determined expression, and looking straight into his father's eyes, he said softly but confidently, "I'll do it for you, Father." Our lives have changed rapidly. Now, every evening at dinner, we discussed the company's affairs, the new challenges that Adam faced, and I saw how this new role absorbed him completely. But I was proud of him, proud of his courage, his desire to do something great to ensure the future not only of our family, but also of everyone who worked in his father's company. Over time, however, I noticed that Adam began to return later and later, and every evening he smelled of something fresh, as if he took a shower every time before coming home. This unusual smell, his irritated answers to my questions, and the sharpness in his voice began to bother me more and more. I tried not to attach importance to this, justifying his behavior with fatigue, a new heavy responsibility. But a shadow of doubt settled in my heart and began to grow, leaving behind an icy trail of uncertainty. Every time I tried to talk to him about it, Adam became more and more irritable. One of our conversations ended with him abruptly throwing at me, "I'm doing this for us so that we can have a better life." His words cut through the silence like a sharp knife, leaving me in agonizing thought. What was really behind his late returns and secrecy? The next morning, while I was still digesting this conversation, his mother appeared on the doorstep, and her eyes burned with anger. She started with a rebuke, not giving me a chance to explain anything. Accusing me of not understanding the difficulties Adam faces every day and of questioning his devotion to his family, she scolded me furiously, as if I were a child who dared to doubt something sacred. I tried to explain that I just wanted to understand what was going on without blaming Adam for anything. But her resolve was unshakable. As if to top it off, my mother-in-law added that from now on all household duties fall on me. I remained standing in the empty room, feeling a quiet wave of protest rising inside, but realizing at the same time how much my relationship with Adam and his family had become entangled. It was so unfair. My mother-in-law always played the role of a caring hostess, pretended to maintain order and share responsibilities with me, but in fact everything lay on my shoulders. Every day she found an excuse to leave the house, disappeared for long hours, leaving me alone with my father-in-law, who needed constant help. When she returned, her tone did not hide her displeasure, as if I had not done anything special for her husband. Adam's father, a man who was tied to his room and did not see her frequent absence at all, seemed indifferent to her leaving. His smile and sincere words of gratitude at least slightly relieved the hardships of my loneliness. Every time I helped him around the house, when I was left alone with him with his needs, he would say sadly, "Julie, I'm sorry that you have to waste your energy on an old man like me. You probably hate it." There was such sincerity in his eyes, such a sad understanding of his situation, that I always squeezed his hand and answered, "Don't worry about it, it's really nice to help you. You are like a father to me." And a warm smile appeared on his face, light as the light of a distant star, which warmed my heart. He whispered, "I'm so lucky that Adam has a kind wife like you, Julie. I do not know how you stand it all, but I am grateful to you with all my heart." His words were the little thing that kept me going. They were like a quiet voice in the dark, helping me move forward when the behavior of Adam and his mother made me more and more lost and lonely. Our nightly routines have become an integral part of my life. When I put my father-in-law to bed, I turned off the light, quietly closed his door and went into the silent living room, where the emptiness of the night enveloped me like a heavy blanket. And on one of those evenings, when I thought that everything, as usual, would fall silent in the void, I discovered that I was not alone. Adam and his mother were waiting for me in the living room. Their gazes were heavy, focused, and there was something ominous in that silence. I felt my heart racing when my mother-in-law, looking at me, finally spoke, "It's a good time, Julie. We have something important to discuss. From now on, you will be fully responsible for taking care of Scott for the rest of his life." I stood there, not understanding what was happening, unable to believe that she could so coolly utter such words, as if she were handing me some ordinary duty. But before I could ask anything, my gaze settled on Adam, who silently walked over and handed me the documents. "These are the divorce papers," he said with icy calm. "I have someone else. We're leaving with her. You can handle the paperwork yourself." His words hit me like blow after blow, like a storm erasing all my illusions. While they were packing their things, not noticing my tears, not deigning to look at me, not a word, I felt my heart breaking into small pieces that would never be glued together again. I was left alone in a silence filled with the echo of footsteps, door slams, and a darkness that seemed especially cold. My cheeks were wet with tears, and my hands were shaking with shock. I just sat there, feeling the emptiness envelop me, while tears of bitterness and pain rolled down my cheeks, leaving salty traces on them. But, suddenly, the father-in-law appeared out of the semi-darkness of the room. He rolled his wheelchair to my chair, and looking at me with concern in his eyes, asked, "Julie, what happened?" I heard some noise and came to check if everything was okay. I tried to find the words, but instead I just sobbed helplessly, feeling the weight of the whole situation cover me with renewed force. With difficulty gathering my thoughts, I began to tell him what had happened. My words were interrupted, a lump squeezed my throat, and pain pierced every word like a needle. A shadow of anger appeared on my father-in-law's face, which I did not expect. His eyes burned like fire, reflecting a strength and confidence I hadn't seen before. And then, with a force that seemed inexplicable for his condition, he raised his voice and said firmly, "Let them go." I stared at his feet in shock, unable to believe what I saw. My father-in-law apologized for keeping it a secret for so long. Then he slowly took an envelope out of his desk drawer and handed it to me, saying it was time to find out the truth. The envelope, as it turned out, contained more than just documents. It was a silent chronicle of betrayal that revealed the whole dirty truth about Adam's infidelities. With pain in his voice, my father-in-law told me that he had noticed strange changes in his son's behavior for a long time. Since Adam became president of the company, he stopped coming home on time, stayed late more and more often, and returned late at night. These unexpected changes alerted his father-in-law, and he decided to hire a private detective. What came out as a result was a bitter blow. The detective revealed not only Adam's affair, but also revealed that his own wife, Adam's mother, was unfaithful. She not only knew about her son's affair, but also encouraged him, covering up her endless disappearances and lies in front of me. My father-in-law handed me photographs that captured their meetings with Adam's mistress. Each frame was mute evidence of betrayal. I looked at them with disgust and bitterness, feeling everything burning inside me, as if all those years of faith and devotion had been mercilessly trampled on. My father-in-law, noticing my pain, said softly, "You deserve to know the truth, Julie. There's no point hiding it anymore. Now it's your turn to make a decision." And at that moment, a new strength awoke in me, as if the shackles that bound me had come off. I suddenly realized that I was not alone. There was a person next to me who was ready to support me. With his help, I felt confident that I would cope with this betrayal and be able to take control of my life again. My father-in-law, seeing my determination, nodded and firmly said, "Leave it to me." He immediately picked up the phone and made several calls to inform the board of the company that Adam was no longer worthy to hold the post of president. Soon he was removed from office, and my father-in-law, with sad confidence, advised me to contact a lawyer to arrange a divorce and ask for a fair division of property. Following his advice, I quickly contacted a lawyer and began the process that was supposed to free me from this marriage. A week later, Adam appeared at my father-in-law's door, his face flushed with anger. He stormed in and demanded to know why he had been removed from office. My father-in-law and I stood in front of him, calm and unperturbed, ready for him to start venting his anger. His father-in-law looked at him firmly and ruthlessly. His voice was full of contempt, but he spoke with restraint, like a man who has nothing left to lose. "It's your own fault for neglecting your duties. You chose your hobbies and intrigues over family and honor. You're only thinking about yourself, Adam, but I'm not going to let you destroy our family and company. You are no longer welcome in this house, and don't come back here again." Realizing that his attempts would lead to nothing, Adam suddenly turned to me, and his gaze rested pleadingly on my face. "Julie," he began, trying to sound sincere, "give me a second chance. I stopped the affair. I'm even ready to give up the division of property if you stop the divorce. I'll fix it, please." His words sounded empty. They meant nothing after everything he had done, and it was hard for me to even look at him. I finally found the strength to answer, and my voice was quiet but adamant. "Do you want me to give up the divorce?" I met his gaze, and there was disbelief in it. "Really? Do you think I'll go back to someone who betrayed me like you did? I'm done with you, Adam." There was shock in his eyes, but I continued, "Of course I want this divorce. Why should I stay with someone who only thought about what he was losing and didn't care about me at all? All this is the result of your own decisions." I looked at him straight in the eyes, for the last time, and said with firmness in my voice, "I'm glad to be free of you. Let your mother and your lover live with each other as they want. I'm tired of being a part of this mess." Frustrated and bereft of support, Adam tried to appeal to me once more, but I didn't listen. My voice, which had been suppressed for so long, now sounded confident and unyielding. His manipulations, lies, and selfishness no longer had power over me. That day was the beginning of a new chapter, and my father-in-law's support gave me the confidence I thought I had lost. I slammed the door behind Adam, finally closing this chapter of my life. Through the door, I could hear his pleas, sobs, and pleas for forgiveness, but neither my father-in-law nor I answered. Our patience and loyalty, trampled and humiliated, found the strength to rise up and move on. After Adam lost the presidency, his life began to crumble rapidly. His mistress, who, as it turned out, was only interested in his money and status, abandoned him as soon as she found out that he no longer had any influence or wealth. Exiled from their luxurious world, Adam and his mother found shelter in a cheap motel, where every morning began with a struggle for survival. They quickly squandered all their savings and ended up in debt. Day jobs, unstable and hard, became their new reality. Their former life remained only a ghost, as a painful reminder of what they had lost. And at the same moment, when Adam, cornered and deprived of everything, began to realize the price he had paid for his devotion to empty dreams, I stayed in my father-in-law's house, which has always been like my own. His words of gratitude and permission to stay as long as you need warmed my heart. I knew he wasn't just saying it out of politeness. He was really glad I stayed, and I was grateful for his generosity. Our everyday lives were filled with caring for each other, sincere support, and the house regained the harmony it had lacked all these years. My father-in-law grew stronger every day, and his confidence and steadfastness gave me even more hope. Soon our routine changed. My father-in-law started visiting the center for the elderly, where he found new friends, participated in various activities, and felt needed again. This innovation gave us both relief. I knew that he would have a good and interesting time, and I finally found the opportunity to return to work, to regain my independence. Our lives have been filled with the joy of everyday success and peace of mind again. I often thought that it was in this house that the true nature of the family was first revealed to me. My father-in-law, a man with whom I had no blood connection, turned out to be the one who always stood by me when it was vital for me. His example showed me that family is more than a blood relationship. These are people who sincerely support each other, no matter what. Now, looking back, I see a lot of lessons in this difficult path. I've learned to appreciate those who genuinely care about me, and to stand up for myself when I need it. My father-in-law and I built a life based on respect and mutual support, and nothing could compare to this quiet but solid force that united us. We both went through difficulties, but in this trial we found fortitude and peace. The future seemed bright to me, even if there might be difficulties ahead. I knew that I was ready for them, and with each new day, life brought me joy and confidence that I was going the right way.